This is a road trip episode where Hurley and Miles might encounter some exciting revelations we didn't see in this episode, more on that later. LaFleur tells Miles to erase the security footage that shows him and Kate take Ben across the border. Before Miles is able to do so, Horace wants him to deliver something to Radzinski at grid 334 in hostile territory. This is grid 334. They've dug up a lot of the grass and started sketching out the swans here. Unfortunately, a man named Alvarez died here. Miles takes the van and drives down south, following that road we saw on the map in Trisha Tanaka is dead.
Miles, what are you doing out here? I was expecting LaFleur.
LaFleur's busy. Horace sent me instead.
Miles discovers he died from a filling being dislodged from a tooth and blown through his brain. Miles drives all the way back through the solid fence and back here. Pierre Chang hears about this and believes it to have been caused by the electromagnetism. Horace then tells Miles to take the body to Chang at the Orchid. In a previous video, I talked about whether or not they were going to test something with the body, but I don't think so. I don't think they've come so far into the Orchid research. I really think Pierre was just a douche and wasn't interested in traveling to the Swan site, so he wanted someone else to take the body to him. Hurley insists they carpool, since he was going to deliver sandwiches.
Nah, man, there's something foul in here. It's coming from back there.
Maybe it's your famous garlic mayo.
No, that's not possible. Okay, maybe it is possible.
They stop on their way, likely over here. Hurley sees the body, and Miles explains the situation. Meanwhile, Kate returns and so does Roger, who has been at the staff. Juliet tells him Ben left. Roger goes to the security office and mentions that Ben has been taken. Before he leaves to get some beer, Kate goes to the swing set and tries to talk to Roger. He gets suspicious of her and then goes to the school to continue his workman duties. He asks Jack about Kate. Miles and Hurley arrive at the Orchid. Chang threatens Hurley to keep quiet and says this.
How do you feel about polar bear feces? Because if you breathe one word of this, I'll have you shipped to Hydra Island so you can weigh turds for the ridiculous experiments.
I find that a bit funny since I would consider the Hydra to be one of the most successful projects of the Dharma Initiative. The Swan had an incident. The Tempest ended up being used against them, and the Orchid had its fair share of problems. The Hydra actually accomplished their goals. Gene therapy and puzzle solving for the bears made them extremely smart. They managed to adapt to the tropical climate, escape Hydra Island, and lived on while the Dharma Initiative all died out. The polar bears were the literal living manifestations of their successful experiments. Miles tells Hurley that Chang is his father, but doesn't want to say anymore.
Are you kidding me? How weird is it that your dad is that dude from all those movies? I mean, back then he was called Marvin Candle. Was that like a stage name?
What part of I don't want to talk about it isn't sinking in?
That reminds me, we never saw a scene of Hurley watching the orientation film in the Swan station. So I guess there was an off-screen scene, maybe when Charlie and Hurley were chilling out in the Swan station, where they decided to check out the film. Chang gets Miles to drive him back to Radzinski, so they take the van and head down here. They are now at the Swan site. You can see that the Dharma Initiative used Chaos construction equipment, which likely came here on a big ship. Like I stated in 316, Dharma had assistance from the Hans Foundation to bring along bigger construction equipment. Hurley recognizes this to be the Swan. One thing that is annoying is the sequence of them punching in the numbers. They are not on the hatch lid, they are on the steel structure. Also, that lid seems like it's made out of the thinnest piece of metal possible. Although this is a blooper, I like to believe that this piece of metal was yanked during the incident. Although we briefly see it here in the season 5 finale, things were still getting sucked into the Swan shaft during the incident, with the entire structures getting sucked down. If this entire piece of machinery ends up in that shaft, then that metallic hatch could have been sucked down there. So this lid is not the same one we see throughout the show. Let's go back to Hurley and Miles. I think Pierre Chang stayed at the Swan site with Radzinski, and then there might be an off-screen scene happening here. Something that I believe that the writers were planning to do. But now that we're so close to the finale, they didn't have time to write in this scene. Originally, they were going to do much more with Faraday and Pierre Chang, as evident from the Comic-Con video that was released the year before. And there was an additional thing that Jorge Garcia participated in. He confirmed it on his podcast.
Was it Hurley reading the numbers when the French team crashed on the beach?
Oh,
That's a good question. It definitely sounded like me. I definitely, at one point, recorded the numbers.
At one point around the time that they were filming that episode.
After they were filming it. I think after they had filmed it.
ADR, yeah.
And that's all I can really say there. There was never anything about me. I mean, are they asking if it was my voice on the recording?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure
a million people have asked, was it Hurley saying the numbers? And well, I was there when you recorded it in the ADR booth, and it sounds exactly like what was aired on the beach.
I'm pretty sure it was, but it was never something that was addressed in the story enough to say it's definitely Hurley.
But when did Hurley record them? Just one day at the Dharma, when he was working at Dharma, he decided to record them?
That's what I'm saying. We don't know. That's not information that we have.
So if you believe this is more than an Easter egg, then there has to be a scene where Hurley records it. And it probably happens in this episode, maybe on their way back, because in the next few episodes they don't have time to do that. Maybe they were here, and someone from the radio tower sees them and stops them, telling them that he needs some help. You see, the numbers broadcast has been playing for some years, since Oliver Hanso confirmed that in the Hanso video from 1975.
A radio transmitter has also been erected on the island, broadcasting in a frequency and encryption known only to us. The transmitter will only broadcast the core numerical values of the Valenzetti equation.
So that's been going on since Dharma came to the island. So maybe there was a technical issue with the antenna, and they needed to be 2 people to fix it. For instance, the radio tower guy had to climb up here to adjust something at the top here, and needed to have Hurley on the walkie in the comm room and talk him through what he needed to push while he was up there. And then maybe he told him to try to test it by reading up the number sequence. And then the radio technician got down and said the broadcast now works, and they can just keep using the audio clip that Hurley recorded. Hurley is already a bit shocked since he's already been subjected to the numbers twice. Maybe they stay here for a while and rest, since by the time they reach the barracks it's nighttime. It's not like it takes that long to drive to the barracks. There's also another thing we can do here that will fix a plot hole. Hurley talks to Richard Alpert in season 6 and says how he looks exactly the same as he did 30 years ago.
You're not time traveling?
No.
But you look the same as you did 30 years ago. How's that possible?
Not easy to explain.
The problem is, Hurley has never met Richard Alpert. He never saw him 30 years ago. This is the first time he meets him. So there is a possibility that they encountered Richard Alpert walking by on their journey. Miles could have asked Richard about something, and then on their trip back he could tell Hurley that this man is the only one amongst the others who knows that they are time travelers. Upon returning that evening, Hurley tries to convince Miles to get to know his father, and Miles discovers Hurley is writing The Empire Strikes Back, and you've got to hand it to the Lost fans. Immediately after this episode aired, the Wikipedia page for The Empire Strikes Back was changed. This is fun. Jack tells LaFleur that Roger is suspicious, and Phil tells LaFleur he knows he took young Ben. And I wish they had put a date here. Come on, we know it's July 1977, but it would be fun with an exact date and time. After watching Pierre, Lara and his 3-month-old self through the window, Chang asks Miles to drive him to the dock.
Get your van and let's get to the dock.
Where scientists from Ann Arbor are arriving, including Daniel Faraday, who has been gone for a long time. Next week will be a bonus episode, which is kind of related to next week's episode, The Variable, but is a bit different, and its subject is something that I contemplated on doing as part of an academic research paper back when I studied film several years ago, so prepare for a deep dive into Lost again.